Has anyone watched any good TV recently? No? Me neither. I think that I've run out of stuff to watch. Doesn't seem to be anything else. You know, all these things, Disney and Netflix and all that, all that stuff. I genuinely, if anyone's got something that they want to recommend me, can you speak to me afterwards? But the good news is, guys, I've got good news. The next 4 weeks we're covered. We don't need to watch any TV, no Netflix, no Disney, no all the other stuff, because we've got Jonah. Okay, and I think it is a bit like a TV mini-series with some comedy drama. Okay, so this morning, The Disobedient Prophet, directed by Tom, that's me. Episode 2, The Prayer from the Soul, directed by Vicky. Episode 3, The Repentant Heart, directed by Julie. And then episode 4, at the end, we've got Jonah's Anger versus God's Grace, directed by Sai. So this is our mini-series. So no TV for the next month. Woohoo! Okay, all right. Okay. It is a great story. And I said at the beginning, it's actually quite funny. And it's one of the few things, I think, in the Bible where the Bible's genuinely trying to be funny. And there is some comedy elements in it. No, I mean, it's not laugh out loud. You're not going to be rolling in the aisles, okay? Well, you might be, but that's probably not to do with the story. So it's a great story. It's got some great characters. There's a love him or hate him, anti-hero, hero, Jonah. There's a plot twist. There's some amazing special effects. Yeah? Okay. And everyone's excited about that, okay? And it's also a story that gets under your skin a little bit. I think it's yes, it's funny, but it's got some serious things. It sort of stays in your mind, and I love it the next 4 weeks as we, because this is the only thing we're doing over the next 4 weeks. You're not watching anything. This is the story for the next 4 weeks. And let's allow the humor, the irony, the satire of the story to speak to us in some way. So let's dive in. That is as good as it gets. So, okay, that is the pinnacle of comedy. It's comedy gold, okay? Remember, note to self, never use a pun ever again. Okay, all right, so what's the context? No one really knows when Jonah was written. It's difficult to identify exactly or who wrote it, in fact. But Jonah is referenced in 2 Kings, therefore they're thinking it's sort of set in the 8th century BC. Crucially, when the Israelites were under threat, Israel was under threat from the Assyrian Empire. Okay? Don't you hate it when you're watching a TV series and someone comes in halfway through and says, "What's going on?" And you're like, "What? How? I can't." Well, just give me the basics. The basics right at the beginning of Jonah, we just need to know is the sort of Jonah's supposed to be the goody, and the Assyrians are supposed to be the evil baddies. Actually, there's a reason why they are significantly evil in the story, because known historical documents suggest that they were very violent people. Of those that they conquered, they did terrible, despicable things to, terrible mutilations. They would, sorry to be so grim, but they would pile up pyramids of human heads that they had executed, and people were flayed alive. So some really unpleasant things. That's important in the light of Jonah not wanting to go to Nineveh. That is an important little detail there. And before we dive in, a quick word on satire. What is satire? You see, remember that this story, there are elements of satire within this story. And as I think I understand, that satire works by holding a mirror up to those who are reading or those who are watching. Holds a mirror up and says, can you recognize yourself in this? Can you recognize your society, your social norms, and your behaviors, and your personality maybe in this story? And great satire not only holds a mirror up, but it challenges us. It says, dare you see yourself, and dare you change as a consequence of seeing yourself. And that's the challenge for us as we read Jonah over the next 4 weeks. Dare we see ourselves in the character of Jonah? Dare we allow that story to change us in some way? So episode 1 is what I'm going to be doing. Scene 1, I've entitled The Running Man. And you know, in the trailer, a trailer for a comedy, mine is Jonah is having a really bad day. You know how the trailer often kind of starts with this, he's having a really bad day. This is Jonah is having a really bad day. Because picture the scene. In my mind, Jonah is asleep and God's come to him in a dream. And the first thing we see is a bit of a cliche, so forgive me. But he wakes up with a full of sweat, and we don't really know why, but we know in the story that he's been told to do something that he doesn't want to do. No, Lord, not that. Anything but that. It says in verse 1, the word of the Lord came to Jonah, son of Amittai. He's having a really bad day. In Hebrew, actually, his name means faithful one. So the comedy, I'm going to pick up little moments of comedy. I told you it's not rolling in the aisles, but there's some irony there, isn't there? Because God says, get up and go. It doesn't actually say that in the NIV, but lots of translations say, God says, get up and go to the great city of Nineveh and preach against it because its wickedness has come up before me. Okay, so that is the instruction. And what does Jonah do? Obedient prophet that he is, so Jonah got up. Yes, he's going to get up. He's obedient. And what does he do? And then the next thing, and this will have you, it has the Israelites rolling in the aisles, and ran away from the Lord and headed for Tarshish. Okay, so you may not be rolling in the aisles, but to ancient Near Eastern readers, that is funny. Okay, that is comedy. He gets up, he obeys, he's obedient, he's responsive to the word of the Lord. But what is his response? It is diametrically opposite to where God has called him, Tarshish. Now, we need to understand a little bit about Tarshish. We know a little bit about Nineveh and all the pyramid of heads and horribleness. But Tarshish, scholars understand Tarshish to be somewhere deep in sunny Spain. Nice. Spain, siestas, flamenco, paella, Tarshish is good. Surely, Lord, did you really say Nineveh? Perhaps you said Tarshish with paella and flamenco and siestas. We can sympathize a little bit with Jonah, can't we? Because God is calling him, because he has this decision before him. And we can see him justifying it, because on his journey down to the port, we can hear the excuses he might have made on his way down. And down is really important, because down is repeated 3 times in the first 3 verses. Down, down, and then down. He goes down to Joppa, then he goes down into the boat, and then he goes down into the whale. Okay, spoiler, sorry. The good people of Tarshish need to hear about God too, is probably what he said to himself. Yeah? Wow, there's a ship ready to go. It must be a sign from God that really I need to go to Tarshish. We've all done that, haven't we? We're looking for signs that kind of counter God's actual call. I just don't think I have the right gifts for Nineveh and all that. Yeah? Self-justification. I once had a friend, when I was 19, I was planning a gap year, and a lot of my friends were planning a gap year, and I remember having a chat with some friends of mine, and we were all talking and praying about what God might be calling us to. And one of my friends, without irony, he said this, I really feel the Lord wants me serving among the people of Hawaii to the surfing community. So I'm going to do a DTS, a YWAM DTS in Hawaii to the surfing community. And another friend of mine went, to all the girls in swimsuits. And we all fell about laughing, okay? He actually did go, and he had a great time. And he's still there to this day. No, he's not, but he might be, I don't know. But the point is, what I tried to say is, we can often hear what we want to hear from God, can't we? And I think, he wanted to hear Tarshish, but God called and said something else and had pulled him away. And this is absolutely crucial. And we can laugh at him, can't we? We can laugh at him. It's a funny story until we dare to see ourselves in Jonah's choice that he has before him. God's plan doesn't always look great on paper. It doesn't always look great on paper, does it? The Nineveh-Tarshish pull is before us every day. The moment of choice. What is Tarshish for me? What is the flamenco paella? Although those things sound very nice. But what is the Tarshish tug every day for me that pulls me into comfort zone? Safety, comfy? Because in that, okay, it's over here. Tarshish is over here in my head. Because over there, that I don't really need God. I can do this. I can eat paella all my life. I don't really need God. But over here, I need him. But it pulls me out of my comfort zone and into that place of need and dependence on God. And I wonder for you and for me this morning, what is that pull? Because once we discern that pull, then we can start to understand a little bit of what this story is trying to say to us this morning. You see, it's not the comfy zone, Nineveh. It's the place God calls that we don't always want to go. It's whatever we hate that God loves deeply, deeply. It's the people who hurt us deeply, and God says, go and give them my message. It's where we can't rely on ourselves and we can only rely on him. It's the place that scares us. A friend of mine a few years ago once said, this month I'm trying to do something every day that scares me. That's an interesting challenge. I'm trying to do something every day that scares me. Because what she's basically saying is, we exist in Tarshish quite a lot of the time. And I want to step into that place where I need to rely on God. And what are the things that scare us that we might want to step into this week? Okay. You see, right at the heart of this choice that we have, the Tarshish-Nineveh choice, right at the heart of it is a question. And it's the question that Jonah asked, and he answered it, I believe, incorrectly. Because it's the question, do I trust that God has my best interests at heart? Do I trust that God will look after me if I go there? Do I trust it? And if we're really honest, a lot of the time it's like, no, I don't. I trust this stuff over here because I feel safe. And maybe God is saying, no, step into this. Because that is where I am. And that is where my kingdom is. And that is where I'm going to change you. And that is where you are going to encounter me in extraordinary ways in your life. So that was episode 1, scene 1. The running man. Do you know the tagline? You can run, but you just can't hide, yeah? I think that would be the Jonah story. He can run, but he can't hide. But boy, will he try. And that is basically Jonah. And I've called scene 2, the hiding man. Okay? The hiding man. Because what is happening here? Let's have a look at it. The next verse, verse 5. But Jonah had gone below... Down. Do you remember? Jonah had gone below deck where he lay down and he fell into a deep sleep. He fell into a deep sleep. And I think it works as the hiding man. He is hiding. He is doing the equivalent, and I can only think of it in terms of an action, of this. La 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 la. I am not going to see or hear the circumstances of my actions. La 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 la. Ever done that? Ever done that? Some honest people here. The rest of you are lying. Okay. Sorry, no offense. Slight offense, but anyway. Okay, so the ship is in trouble. Sailors have no idea what to do. They've exhausted their ideas, which are chuck over the luggage, lighten the load, and they've prayed to their gods. That hasn't worked. And one of them says, well, what about the stranger in the hold who's asleep? What do we do about him? And he's woken up. This time, he's woken up not by God saying, Jonah, go to Nineveh. He's woken up by a sailor, the captain, who's also saying, wake up and get up. This is what he says. This is really interesting. The captain went to him and said, how can you sleep? Get up and call on your God. And I find this interesting because the words get up that the captain uses are the exact words in Hebrew that God had used right at the beginning of the chapter when he says, get up and go. It's the same words. God uses the same words through somebody else. Isn't that interesting that God will speak through people who aren't believers to us. That's really important. We need to be awake to that. He will use whoever and whatever to speak to us. So that's a great little moment of irony there. And the readers in Hebrew would have gone, oh, it's the same words that God would use. And notice the captain goes on and he says, get up and call on your God. Maybe he will take notice of us and we will not perish. There's some faith there, isn't there? Jonah is silent. He is hiding. He is willfully blind to the circumstances around him. And the people who have faith are the sailors, the captain. The pagan captain has more faith than the man of God. And that's a simple point I just want to make in my episode 1, scene 2. Let's note Jonah's passivity in this. Passivity. He's hiding, he's sleeping, and when he's woken, he says nothing in all the commotion. He is absolutely silent for the next few verses. He withholds his gift right at this point. He withholds his gift, his capacity to talk to God. He withholds his strength in a crisis. He withholds his capacity to help. And if this satirical story says anything to us, it holds a mirror up to us. Where are we passive? And where are we withholding our gift from others in need? Very simple point. Because I don't know about you, but when I'm not in a good place, I'm kind of thinking about myself and not others. And here, exactly the same for Jonah. He's not in a good place. He's in disobedience and sin from God. He's running away from God. And he's stopped hearing God's voice, but he's also stopping looking at the needs of others around him. Let's not be passive in that. Let's look and be aware and open our eyes to those that need our gift. Because basically his private faith has no public use in that moment. No public use. Let's make sure our private faith has a public use and is a public gift to others around us. Okay, so scene 1, the running man. Scene 2, the hiding man. Scene 3, the dying man. Oh, I've changed the tone. A little tone shift in our comedy drama, the dying man. You see, the sailors soon realize that if he is the cause of the storm, then he might just be the key to stopping the storm. Yes? Yep. And they ask a whole load of questions. I don't know whether you picked that up when Sarah read it, but about 5 questions. Who are you? Where do you come from? Who's your God? Where's your religion? It's sort of Monty Python-esque in its kind of do-do-do-do-do-do. And then finally, he says, I am a Hebrew and I worship the Lord, the God of heaven, who made the sea and the land. There's a little bit of irony in that. Yeah, he made the sea and the land. But Jonah, why did you go on the sea if God is the God of the sea who is going to find, he knows where you are. But he does that. And then it says, this terrified them. And they ask, what are we going to do? Where are we all going to, we're all going to die. Ah! And at that moment, Paella seems a very far way away. He's never going to get there. And then he says this. And here's the shift in tone to the story, the shift in tone. Pick me up and throw me into the sea, and it will become calm. There's the faith. I know that it is my fault that this great storm has come to you. You see, it's difficult here. Is he moved by their need? We don't really know. Or does he just have a death wish? Yeah? We don't really know. I think it's a bit of both, a little bit of both, but I think he's moved because he sees the circumstance, and suddenly he sees the culpability of his sin and that his sin has brought about a storm. Okay? That's what he sees. You know, isn't it interesting that when we come to our senses, when we are lost a little bit spiritually, when we come to our senses, we begin to see the needs of others around us. We begin to see less of our own self-preoccupation and move into seeing others around us. I find that quite interesting. And then the sailors, bless them, he's told them, throw me in. And they're like, well, we can't really do that. We'll try rowing. So they try rowing. But that doesn't work. And then they go, oh, well, let's chuck him in. Okay, the last resort. Bless them, the sailors, they chuck him in. Interesting, the people of God do not have a monopoly on love. Okay, people who are not of God don't. The people of God do not have a monopoly on love. Yeah? The sailors who do not know God try and do the right thing there. And then we have this. That doesn't work. So they chuck him in. Sorry, God, they say. And then there is a miracle. The sea is calm and the pagan sailors worship and Jonah drowns. The end. Is that? No. I thought that was funny. Is that funny? Is it? It's kind of funny. You kind of want to... Okay, don't worry. Okay. But the Lord provided a great fish to swallow Jonah. And Jonah was inside the fish 3 days and 3 nights. Episode 1 ends on a cliffhanger. It ends on a cliffhanger. And what's going to happen? You're going to have to come back next week to find out. Okay. I want to end with this. You know, I called this final scene the dying man. So we've had the running man, we've had the hiding man, and this final scene is the dying man. You know, Jesus really liked this story, I think. I think the Israelites, the Jews love this story, and it's often used in Scripture. And Jesus referenced it a couple of times. And he references it in Luke 11 when he said this. These are evil times, he said, and this evil generation keeps asking me to show them a miraculous sign. But the only sign I will give them is the sign of the prophet Jonah. Why did he say that? It's an interesting thing. What is the sign of Jonah to us and to them? You see, so many stories in the Old Testament whisper the name of Jesus. So many stories. And even this one does as well. As I was just speaking now, I completely forgot. The sleeping prophet in the boat. Anyone remember that story in the New Testament? But here we have the story of Jonah whispering the name Jesus. And what is it whispering? What is Jesus trying to say? What is the sign of Jonah? He's saying, you know Jonah, when Jonah substituted himself for the sailors, when he said, I'll take the wrath of the waves so you, sailors, pagan sailors, so you don't need to, Jesus is saying, that is what I'm going to do for you. Wow. As Jonah sacrificed himself for the sailors, I will be greater than him. I am a greater sign than Jonah. I will be the substitute sacrifice for all people. For all people. You know, as Jonah was swallowed up by the fish, Jesus says, I will be 3 days swallowed up in death and I will return. And that's what you need to know about me. That is the sign of Jonah. And I fulfill that, and I am greater than he. And you know, remember the running man and the hiding man. Both of those responses right at its heart is the question, or it's the statement really, God does not have my best interests at heart. God will not look after me. I am on my own in this. But the dying man disproves that. And this is the point I want us to be reminded of this morning. The dying man disproves that. The dying man, Jesus himself, proves that thought, God doesn't love me, I'm on my own. Those are deeply held lies. They are core lies that are dismantled at the cross. Because the dying man, the God who substitutes himself for us and suffers so that we might go free. That is a God who we can trust. That is a God that we must trust. So, Let's stop running. Those of us who can see ourselves in Jonah, let's stop running. And we all run. You know, whether we come to church or not, whether we're even preaching about running or not, we can be running from God in all sorts of different ways. We can be withholding our gift and hiding from God in all sorts of different ways. Show us, Lord, how are we running and how are we withholding? See, he may call us to scary places, and he probably will do. And even if it may not be a Nineveh type of scary place, but he will call you out of the Tarshish comfort zone of our lives. And he will call us into that place where we need to trust him and depend on him, because that is all we can do when it comes to Nineveh. But the truth of it is that he is going to be there. So we can run towards it because we'll meet him there. So let's stop, let's stop running from God, and let's start running to him. Let's stop hiding from God and start hiding in him. Because that is the best place to be. It's the only place to be. Why don't I'm going to invite the band up. Ollie, Tam, and team, why don't you come up? How do we respond to that? Let's run to him. Let's stop running from him. What does that mean for you this morning? Am I running from God? Is there a word that I've heard that I'm not saying yes to because I'm scared and I don't trust that he's going to look after me? Am I hiding from him? Am I withholding something of my gift, something that I carry out of fear? Who knows? Holy Spirit will show us if we dare ask him. Why don't we stand together? I'm going to stand.